With the 2022 Winter Olympics underway in Beijing right now, I thought I'd take this time to talk about three people to ever grace that stage. Not just the legacy that they left behind, but the story that kind of wove all of them together. Join me as we talk about Tonya Harding, Nancy Kerrigan, and Oksana Baiul. Born on November 12, 1970 in Portland, Oregon, Tonya Maxine Harding's story is a seesaw ride filled with ups, downs, controversies, and redemption. Raised up poor due to family financial struggles, Tonya got into figure skating at the age of 3 when her mother enrolled her to take lessons. As time went by, figure skating would eventually become the primary goal in Tonya's life. So much that in 1987, she would drop out of high school in order to focus on it. Yet the following year, she would achieve her GED. Now, according to many sources, as well as Tonya herself, her childhood growing up was not the best. She was trailer trash poor, parents divorced when she was 16, claims of physical and psychological abuse by her mother, and dropping out of high school. Figure skating was all Tonya had keeping her going, and she was very, very good at it. Placing in the top 10 in U.S. figure skating competitions, in 1989, she won the Skate America competition, and in 1990, at the age of 20, became the first U.S. woman in history to successfully land the triple axel.
And now the question is whether she will become the first American to attempt and complete a triple axel jump. We will know that here, whether she tries it or not. Good girl! Oh, isn't that great? The first time an American, only Midori Ito, has completed a triple axel in competition. Oh, how nice! How terrific!
It was at that moment that Tonya knew she was Olympic figure skating worthy. Now, if we could only stop the story there, because 1990 and 1991 were the best skating years of Tonya's life. Yet unfortunately, they were about to go downhill from this point forward. Because besides her mom, the second ginormous problem in Tonya's life was her now ex-husband, Jeff Gillooly. Jeff and Tonya met in 1986 when she was 15 and he was 17. They began a relationship and moved in together in 1988. 2 years later, the two were married. However, the marriage was anything but sunshine and rainbows. Yeah, more like screaming, yelling, and exchanging blows. It was so bad that they would end up divorcing in 1993. But a short time later, Tonya would hook up with him again. And the third and probably worst thing to ever happen to Tonya Harding, Nancy Kerrigan. After Tonya failed to win the 1992 Winter Olympics when she was dressed up by the media as a shoo-in, almost instantly they dropped her and started focusing on the brand new Nancy Kerrigan. This is where the waters get really dirty when it comes to the Tonya-Nancy saga. While many portrayed Tonya as being jealous of Nancy Kerrigan's immediate rise after winning the bronze medal at the 1992 Olympics, Tonya, in her own words, claimed that she had no ill will towards her. Yet unfortunately, that was all tested when that famous day, January 6, 1994, when Nancy was attacked by a man that struck her in the right leg. Would then go on to win the national championships that year, but was later stripped of it because she pled guilty to being a part of the attack on Nancy Kerrigan, where after the 1994 Olympics, she was banned from figure skating competitions for life. After receiving her life ban by the U.S. Figure Skating Association, a lot of things would happen to Tonya as time went by. She would be involved in a sex scandal where Jeff Gillooly had sold their sex tape to Penthouse. Boxing for a short time, where she ended up retiring with a record of 3-3. She appeared on the celebrity version of The Weakest Link, Dancing with the Stars, and Worst Cooks in America, to where she won $25,000 for the St. Jude Hospital charity. And I, Tonya was released, where she was portrayed by none other than the one and only Margot Robbie. Today, Tonya lives in Vancouver, where she's remarried with a son, and now goes by the name Tonya Prince. Nancy Ann Kerrigan was born October 13, 1969 in Stoneham, Massachusetts. The youngest of 3 children, she got into figure skating at the age of 6. It started out as rough at first because Nancy's parents couldn't afford her skating lessons due to a financial situation. But eventually, her father struck a deal with the manager of the local rink, agreeing to drive the Zamboni in exchange for her lessons. Now I'm going to tell you straight up, Nancy's dad was a great man, in capital letters. He was hard working, man. He would take Nancy to her skating lessons early in the morning, work the Zamboni afterwards, drive Nancy and her brothers to school, then work his other jobs afterward in order to support his family, man, due to his wife, his fading eyesight. Now that guy deserves a whole lot of respect. Nancy kept improving her craft as years went by, but she didn't start to shine until she won the bronze medal in 1991, just placing out the Tonya Harding and Kristi Yamaguchi, and the following year won the silver, being outdone by Yamaguchi again. It wasn't until Kristi Yamaguchi retired where Nancy would win the U.S. figure skating competition, and with it, media attention, as the new women's figure skating it girl, knocking Tonya Harding out of the picture. It was these accomplishments that Nancy rightfully earned, which made people think that it was the reason why this happened.
What happened? What happened?
Relax. Why?
What did you hit her?
I don't know, some hard black stick. Something really hard.
January 6, 1994 at the Cobo Arena in Detroit, Michigan was the day when a man who would later be identified as Shane Stant attacked Nancy Kerrigan by striking her on her right leg with a blunt object just barely above her knee. They say, had the strike been just 1 inch low, it would have possibly shattered her knee, crippling her for life. Despite that, Nancy was forced to withdraw from competition, yet fought hard to heal in order to make it to the Olympics a month later. The attack also brought her tons of media attention, endorsement deals, and officially dubbed her America's Sweetheart on how she handled herself in interviews once it was revealed the attack was orchestrated by skating rival Tonya Harding's ex-husband, Jeff Gillooly, and her bodyguard, Sean Eckert. Nancy Kerrigan would go on to compete in the 1994 Olympics, where she won the silver medal, being outdone by 16-year-old Oksana Baiul. And though Nancy was portrayed as America's sweetheart at this time, she would end up tarnishing that reputation later on. Like I said earlier, after the attack, the media instantly went to work molding Nancy Kerrigan into America's sweetheart with the way they portrayed her. However, there would be a few instances where Nancy would show that she was anything but that. And all the sympathy that she started to garner started turning into hatred. For instance, when she failed to win the gold medal at the 1994 Olympics, where she was assured to win as she was dressed up by the media, as they waited for the medal presentation, which was delayed because they couldn't find a CD that contained the Ukrainian national anthem, someone wrongfully informed Nancy that it was because they were fixing Oksana's makeup because she had cried it off, to which Nancy can be seen on camera saying this.
Until the end, it was an event plagued by the bizarre. From Tonya's skate laces all the way to the medal ceremony, which was delayed for more than 10 minutes. Nancy Kerrigan and Shen Lu thought they were waiting for Oksana Baiul to be made up.
So she's gonna get out here and cry again.
In fact, it was Oksana's makeup, but also no one could find a copy of the Ukrainian national anthem.
When Nancy's whiny, spoiled-bratted display was played on a couple of news outlets, a writer for the Chicago Tribune wrote a hit piece about it, calling the display mean-spirited. But it didn't end there. Following the Olympics, Nancy embarked on a major tour, which involved participating in a Disney parade, to which she was paid $2 million for. Now, you'd think, for $2 million, someone would be more than happy to smile and wave while standing beside Mickey Mouse, right? Right? Nope. Not our Nancy. For once again, she was caught on camera acting like a spoiled brat.
Kerrigan even had to be coached to smile. Now listen carefully to the off-camera voice that has to tell her to smile, honey.
Smile, honey. What's this for?
Well, this is going to be uplinked to most of the stations across the country that are eager to hear about you.
We have an attitude problem here?
Just wanted to welcome you back.
During a parade, Kerrigan complained to Mickey Mouse. It's so corny, so dumb. I hate it. The most corny thing I've ever done. Disney also arranged for Kerrigan to make appearances on the morning talk shows. Today in LA, viewers got only an empty chair until Kerrigan finally showed up only seconds before the end of the show.
Hi, Southern California.
Apparently, somebody forgot to remind Nancy Kerrigan that Disney is paying her a reported $2 million to make television appearances like these, a movie and a TV deal. It looks like Disney has a frosty ice princess on their hands. Yes, and like it or not, you're going to get a lot more of Icy Nancy. Today she signed yet another multi-million-dollar deal, this time with a Revlon cosmetics company. She's already got deals with Campbell's Soup and, of course, Reebok. And President Clinton today invited Nancy and the entire Olympic team to the White House. It is not known, though, if Tonya Harding got the same invitation.
Man, the media sure does know how to pick 'em, right? Well, after that, she would go on to retire from skating competitions. After retiring, Nancy would only make skating appearances for shows such as Broadway and Champion on Ice. She ended up hosting Saturday Night Live, was featured on TV shows and movies such as Boy Meets World, Blades of Glory, and competed in Dancing with the Stars in 2017. She also ended up marrying her agent, Jerry Sullivan, and the two have 3 kids together, to which they spend the majority of their time with now, and barely in the spotlight. Oksana Baiul was born on November 16, 1977 in the Dnipro, Ukraine. Living mostly with her mother and her grandparents, her mother at first wanted her to be a ballerina, but being a chubby kid at the time according to ballet standards, they would end up getting her into figure skating instead. Seeing that she was a natural, she started getting noticed by figure skating experts and coaches who saw potential in Oksana becoming competitive. Sadly, tragedy would strike Oksana's life early, when in 1987, she lost her grandfather, then the following year, her grandmother passed away. But the biggest tragedy came 3 years later, in 1991, when her mother, the one that had been there for her through good and bad, thick and thin, died after a long-fought battle with ovarian cancer. Now alone, Oksana would later be recognized by Galina Miaskaiva, who coached Olympic champion Viktor Petrenko, not only because of her talent, but mainly because Oksana had no family at the time. So moving to Odessa in 1992, she trained Oksana for free. Oksana made quick progress, where in 1993, she began competing at the age of 15, where she won a silver medal at the European figure skating competition. But she would one-up that by winning gold at the World Championships in Prague. It was that moment that people started to notice the Ukrainian sensation known as Oksana Baiul. So much that Tim Collins invited her to be part of that year's Champions on Ice, but it also made her a contender for the upcoming Winter Olympic Games. Though Oksana was a strong medal contender, her presence became overshadowed because at that time, the media, as well as the world, was focused on something else: Tonya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan. For around that time, Tonya's ex-husband Jeff Gillooly orchestrated a vicious attack on Nancy Kerrigan in order to eliminate the competition so Tonya would have an advantage. This attack also skyrocketed Nancy further into the spotlight, which many expected her to win the Olympics. But she wouldn't stay in the shadows for very long, because Oksana's performance on February 25, 1994 gained the 16-year-old Ukrainian star the greatest achievement: an Olympic gold medal. After that, Oksana was in high demand. The media, sponsors, Hollywood all clamoring to get a piece of her. Everywhere, people wanted Oksana Baiul. But what started out as a great thing eventually turned and got overwhelming. Moving to America, Oksana Baiul started experiencing a different side of life. But over time, she became a diva and her popularity grew with fame and fortune. Add the fact that she wasn't training like how she was supposed to, Oksana's skating became more performative than it did competitive. But the biggest problem came when Oksana began consuming alcohol. And all this was being done as she was underage. And though she was underage, she had no problem getting alcohol whenever or wherever. Her drinking problem eventually caused her to be dropped from Champions on Ice in May of 1997. Yet, 5 months prior to that, Oksana had survived a near-fatal crash. Luckily though, no one was hurt that night. But the drop from Champion on Ice would be the final straw for Oksana's drinking. She was checked into a rehab center for 2.5 months. After going through the program, she began skating again. But by that time, Oksana had burned down so many bridges, other skaters didn't want anything to do with her at first. But eventually, that all got turned around. Nowadays, Oksana is living great. She's 44 years old, living in Las Vegas with her husband and her child, Sophia, and is living a wonderful, happy life. Though all 3 of these ladies had lives filled with ups, downs, consequences, downfalls, and redemptions, it doesn't change the fact that when they stepped out on that ice during those competitions, they truly, truly cemented themselves as legacies.